Hello, welcome to another crafty video. Today's one is showing how I'm making my own stencils using my LOKLiK cutting machine. Now, in my previous video, I had only sort of shown you how to cut vinyl products because those were what came with the machine and that's what it's actually sort of more designed to do. But obviously being a crafter, you want to cut cardstock and other bits and pieces. So I wanted to test that you could make your own stencils, because I said in that video that I wanted to make my own stencils. So I bought 3 different thicknesses of mylar when I was making some of my own stencils on my Scan and Cut a few years back. I think I had one that was like 150 microns, and then my thickest one was 250 microns, but the best one I found for making stencils was 190 microns. I got mine off of eBay, but it was quite a while ago, so I did try to find the link again, but they seem to not be selling it anymore. But anything that's sort of around maybe like 180 to 200 microns is really good for mylar, for cutting your own stencils. And you'll be pleased to know that this does cut it really well, because I've just been playing around with it. And the main reason I wanted to do another LOKLiK video, obviously I want to play with it more anyway, but for the current timing of this video, there is currently a sale going on, or they're on offer again on the John Lewis website. So from now until the 31st of May, you can get the bundle that I showed you in my first video, which I'll link at the end of the video and put in the description box as well, for £149.99, whereas it should be £244.99 for that whole bundle. So if you are interested in getting hold of it, I don't get anything out of it. I haven't got affiliate links or anything to do with this, but just I thought if you wanted to get hold of it, it's on offer again, because when I originally did my video, it was on offer, I think for the same price actually. I can't remember now, but if you did want to get hold of it, I thought I'd do another video just to let you know that it is on offer for another week or so. So yeah, I think it's a really good machine, and the fact that it does actually cut mylar as well is brilliant. I haven't done the screen recording like I did last time, but I just wanted to tell you. So to get this to cut, and I haven't peeled it all off yet because I actually want to cut a few more stencils for some other projects as well. But you can see the way obviously I've cut Monstera leaves, but the way I placed these on here, I've done it so that I've got positive and negative masks, because I'm thinking of using these on the jelly plate at some point. But you can see they've cut brilliantly through, and I also did some test ones just to check the what setting to put it on as well. So I will come back when I've pulled these off the plate, because we're going to be working with these to make some cards. But I wanted to tell you that for the cutting settings, if you did get a LOKLiK when I showed you it before, and you want to have a go at cutting your own stencils, then the settings I used were keeping the brand as LOKLiK, picking the material cardstock, changing your blade for the 60-degree one, which is the deep cut blade, and then where it says, so for being cardstock, it gives you the parameters of force as number 4 and speed as number 5, but it also said number of passes, and it had the number of passes as 1. I changed it to 2 because on my first test piece there was just a tiny bit catching, so I thought if it goes over it twice, it'll be perfect then. And looking at these now, the registration of the LOKLiK is fantastic because they've done a double cut and it's cut directly over the top of the first cut. So that's really good to know as well. Obviously I will be experimenting more with my LOKLiK machine, playing around with cardstock and bits and pieces as well. But you know that I love die cutting, so it's not replacing my die cutting for me. It's for using for other things that you can't necessarily do with your die cutting machine. Like, yes, I have Monstera dies, but I can't cut a mylar stencil with them, and plus they're not as big as these ones as well. But and things like with the vinyl as well, you can't, well, you can use your dies to cut the vinyl probably, but you can't do the reverse kind of things or put personalised text on things as well. So I will be doing more of that at some point, and I'm obviously going to be doing my crafty experiments video using the mini heat press that I talked about in my other videos as well. It will be coming, I just haven't done them yet, but they're on my massive long to-do list in my brain. But for this video, I just wanted to play around with, can we cut mylar with the LOKLiK cutting machine? And this is just using the standard grip mat, and that seems to have worked really nicely for holding the mylar into place, because I did find years ago when I was using my Scan and Cut to cut the mylar, I was using an old mat, so that was probably why, but it did keep coming unstuck, and then you get like weird double cuts, or it doesn't cut it in the right place, and especially if you were cutting something very intricate as well, you could completely sort of mess up the design because it hadn't stuck to the mat properly. But this held it in place perfectly for cutting. So I will be back in a minute for you, in a few minutes for me, because I want to cut a few more out for other videos in the future as well. But I'll be back to show you these stencils, how I'm going to cut them apart, because I think I'm going to keep them as positives and negatives to use for different things. And I also cut some of them differently as well. So these two have positives of a Monstera leaf shape, and then I've got the negatives around them, but the top two I used different designs. This one I actually used on my water bottle, which I'm still using, my gorgeous water bottle that I created before, and then this one was a different kind of stencil or design on the LOKLiK software. It kind of looked like a postage stamp, so I took that out off the outside and just cut the inside piece to sort of see what that looks like as well. So we'll have a look further into these in a few seconds. Okay, I'm back after like an hour or so of making more stencils and then a game of Fetch in the Garden with Pumpkin. So I want to get this video up for you this evening, which is hopefully the day you'll see it, which is Sunday the 26th of May. So technically you've got 5 days until the sale is over. But my original idea was to play with them on the jelly plate, but I am going to be doing lots of crafty experiments using the jelly plate, so I might just save that experimentation for one of those videos, and we might just do something a bit more simple with inks and possibly some gorgeous gilding polishes as well, maybe some opal blaze actually too, because I do love the opal blaze. So my original plan was to have these like this. I think this one turned out fantastic. This was the one that I said had a postage stamp around the edge of it, and I just deleted that. So I just had the interior cutaway pieces, and this is the only one where you're not going to use those positive pieces. I just chucked those because I don't think anybody would want to place them all into position to get a Monstera leaf looking design. So this is just sort of like an actual stencil, whereas this one, the pieces from this, I can technically use them as a mask as well. This one did have a little bit of trouble. You know what I was saying about how brilliantly they cut? This one, I think I was being a little bit too heavy-handed when I pulled this part out, but it did also have a couple of areas where it hadn't quite cut through. There's like this jaggedy bit where it just hadn't quite cut through, so you might get that in some places. If you do, I was doing some more. Obviously I was cutting a few more out, and there was some more that were more on the intricate side, so I actually upped the force to 4.5 and still had the 2 cuts on it, and that worked brilliantly. I didn't get any of this happening. So, you know, if you are doing more of an intricate design, go for 4.5 or maybe even 5 as the force. You just don't want to go too forceful because you'll cut into your mat too much, you know. But you can just rectify this by trimming off those pieces, and then you can easily use these interior pieces. I've still got one circle to pop out of this, and then that is fine to use as well. And you can see this is one of the Monstera leaves that I used on my water bottle because it was in 2 halves, and it's the one where I tried to make more of a join down the centre, but it was a little bit too far apart still. But this is still holding up well. I mean, a couple of the edges are kind of catching. You can sort of feel that it's caught a little bit on the very, very corners of some of the edges, but I'm still impressed with this. I've been using it loads, and it makes me smile every time I look at it because I love the Monstera leaves. So I think it was a successful project. So anyway, back to these. Yeah, so that's now usable, and obviously the 2 that came out of these solid ones are easily usable. There's, oh no, that's just loose threading maybe, or there's a tiny little bit that must have caught a little tiny bit on there, but other than those little tiny areas, that's absolutely perfect as well for using. And you can use them either way round. You don't have to use them the same way round as the outside piece either. And then the only other thing is, when I was pulling these pieces out, as I said, I was a bit too heavy-handed, and I broke this piece here and I broke this piece here. But Monstera leaves come in all different shapes and sizes. Some of their leafy bits are bigger, some of them have those slits in them, some of them don't. So I am just going to alter it, and then no one would know. that those two pieces broke off. So you can just go like that, and then it just looks like more of an asymmetrical one, which is nice. So we've got those 4 pieces now as well, and we've got our 3 sort of positive versions. Now my idea was to cut these up, and it might make your life easier if you draw a rectangle around them and get it to cut it out as well, because I did find it was quite, I think that's why I tore those 2 pieces on this one. I'd started at this end and trying to like stop this from sticking back down onto the mat whilst also prizing it away from the fiddly areas. If I had cut them into rectangles and got the machine to cut it, maybe it would have been a little bit easier. But anyway, this was my first attempt, so in the future, if I'm doing things like this, I'll know to put them in a rectangle. But I was just thinking, I'm just going to cut them apart. It doesn't have to be perfect, because I'm not going to be using the edge as part of a design. I'm going to be like taping it off or just not going towards the edge. So I think that's going to be totally fine just to cut them by hand. And we'll do this one as well. And I'll just leave it like that big, I think. And then this one, I'll just cut those 2 test dots off the bottom. They might even be useful for adding dots onto a design as well, if we want to. Maybe we'll do that to show you. So now all I've got to do, I don't want to spend too long on this because I want to get this video up this evening. But firstly, I've got to decide what one to use, because I had a bunch of different ideas of ways to use these, maybe using embossing powders and things with them as well, showing how you can possibly design your leaf through this, and then you could put this back over the top to protect it and do your background, and then you could maybe, or maybe you could do a design underneath it, add clear sticky ink, put clear embossing powder on it to protect it, and then take it all away and ink your background as well. You can do so many different things when you have a positive and negative mask, and a lot of companies do actually give you the fall away piece. Like if you bought a stencil or mask like this, they would give you both pieces anyway. But making them for yourself, I mean, as I said in my original LOKLiK video, there are so many designs that are free on there. I think it was over 12,000, wasn't it? And you can just go through, have the app on your phone as well, go through, select all your favourites, and then I promise you there's more than just Monstera leaves on there. I just have used those files a lot because I really like them. But yeah, there's so many different bits and pieces you can use. You could do wording on it as well. Maybe you want to do some word prints on the jelly plate. You know, you can make a stencil that's custom to, I don't know, invitations to something, and create loads of jelly printed cards with a certain phrase on them, or, you know, there's so many different things you could do with making your own stencils. And when I get to more of my crafty experiment videos, we'll sort of look into that kind of stuff more, I reckon. So I've got to decide though, what am I going to do for this card? Which stencil do I want to use? Quite liking this shape. This is one of the shapes that I used on my water bottle actually. I do quite like this shape, so maybe we'll go with this one and see how long it takes me to make a card. So I'm going to speed this bit up just so it's a bit quicker rather than me talking in real time. But I hope you enjoyed seeing my LOKLiK machine again, knowing that it can cut your mylar for you. This was 190 microns, and I used the cardstock setting under the LOKLiK brand in the software. I used the 60-degree deep cut blade, and I made it go round and cut it twice. And if you have more intricate designs like these kind of ones, you might want to up the pressure just a little bit to maybe 4.5 or 5 to get it to cut really nicely as well. So hope you enjoy this sped up footage, and thank you for watching.